couple instantly regrets having their child after learning something about her years later. When a couple experiences difficulty in having a baby through natural means, adoption is a viable option. Usually it works out pretty perfectly for both the parents as well as the child. However, on rare occasions, adoption doesn't end up filling the void that parents have when they long for a child. Perhaps the most famous of these is one which happened to an unsuspecting couple whose adopted daughter defied their expectations. In their case, when they discovered who she really was, they had to abandon ship. Melanie and Rob were a married couple who desperately wanted to add another addition to their family. Up until that point, they had had a little boy, Daniel, through natural means. However, for the last 18 months, they had been trying to get another one on the way. Sadly, they had no success up until then. Frustrated at their inability to have a second child, Melanie and Rob conducted regular checkups at the doctor. In both of their cases, doctors confirmed that they were both healthy and that nothing should be impeding them from having a child. Needless to say, Melanie and Rob were growing exasperated with each passing day. They couldn't understand why their next baby wasn't on the way. They wondered if their luck had run out, or whether there was something that the doctor wasn't telling them directly. After so much time trying, the couple decided that they should stop torturing themselves. Instead of trying again, they should just adopt a child. Although Melanie would have wanted to bear her own child, one of her dreams was to give an unwanted child a second chance at life. She didn't think that it was fair for them to be subject to unhappy circumstances when they didn't sign up to be brought into this world. This was a sentiment that Bob also shared. With that in mind, the couple set out on the arduous task of sorting through the red tape and legalities associated with adoption. After several months, they believed that they had zoned in on who they thought was a perfect match for their family, a young girl called Alex. Over the course of a few months, while Melanie and Rob had been organizing their adoption permit, they interacted with Alex several times. While she did seem like a pleasant girl and they were settled on adopting her, there was something peculiar about her. For some odd reason, whenever Alex was in the company of others, she would keep her eyes closed. Melanie and Rob had never seen her eyes. It was all fairly strange, to say the least. Although no one really understood why, the adoption agency claimed that Alex's behavior was probably a direct result of her upbringing. Besides, she didn't have difficulty moving around or socializing with others. Melanie and Rob were puzzled by this, but still remained hopeful. They believed that with a good home, they would be able to turn Alex's life around for the better. Having finalized the adoption papers, Melanie and Rob were eager to bring their new daughter home. They met Alex at her foster parents' house. When her new parents greeted her, she smiled warmly at them, yet there was something off about her reaction. The couple observed that Alex's eyes remained closed despite her seemingly happy disposition. This struck them as odd because when someone smiles, their eyes usually light up. However, in Alex's case, hers didn't. It defied normal human behavior. But as much as Alex's body language was challenging to read, Melanie and Rob figured that it was a byproduct of her traumatic past. They had the faith that the love and care they were going to show Alex would have her looking a lot happier. Melanie and Rob brought Alex home. For the first several months, she adapted well to the change. She got along with her new brother Daniel and seemed to have integrated into the family. That was until disaster struck. After some months, Melanie and Rob observed some characteristics of their daughter. Something that stood out for them was her seeming inability to learn basic skills. For example, despite having been taught multiple times, she didn't know how to switch between channels on a television or brush her teeth. Although her behavior was abnormal, the couple brushed it off as just a side effect of the trauma of her past. They hoped that as time passed, she would eventually come around. Despite her erratic behavior, there hadn't been any significant hiccups in the household. That was until Melanie overheard her son Daniel frantically screaming at Alex. Melanie sprang into action. What was going on? To Melanie's dismay, when she got to the scene of the crime, she saw Alex was seated in front of their pet cat and saying strange words over and over. It seemed as if she was in some sort of trance. Melanie was stunned, yet she knew that she had to act quickly. With lightning speed, she reached over to Alex, grabbed her, and shook her slightly. After a few tugs, she seemed to come to. She asked what was wrong, but Alex didn't respond. Slightly shaken, Melanie left the room. However, upon exiting, Melanie stayed by the entrance for a few minutes to see what Alex would do. She could see them, but they couldn't see her. Melanie heard Alex mutter under her breath to her son Daniel, "I hate you. You made Mom here." Just when Melanie was about to intervene, she saw something that left her mortified. For the very first time since she was brought home, Alex opened her eyes in front of others. Melanie uttered a silent gasp. Her daughter's eyes were pure white, including her iris. Then her daughter repeated to Daniel what she had just told him. This time, however, her voice was eerie and creepy, almost as if it was someone else channeling their voice through her. What did this mean? As the weeks went on, Alex continued to display aggressive and inexplicable acts of behavior. One day they were fed up with her antics, so at dinner they pressured her to explain why she behaved the way she did. Her response sent chills up and down their spine. "The voice tells me to do all these things," she said with a coy smile. Melanie and Rob were confused. The voice? Which voice? They tried pressing Alex to no avail. It was clear that the voice she was hearing was inside her head, as they couldn't hear it. It was then that they knew their daughter needed serious help. The couple wasn't particularly religious, so their natural course of action was to go to a psychologist who would evaluate their daughter. Alex was placed in regular therapy for months. Her sessions went well. However, Melanie and Rob knew that not all that glittered was gold. To the couple's growing frustration and horror, Alex continued wreaking havoc at home. However, when she was at therapy, she was a transformed child. She was pleasant and cordial with a psychologist. Melanie and Rob recognized that Alex's behavior was unacceptable. She was clearly manipulating people to believe that she was an angel when both she and her parents knew better. During this entire ordeal, the couple would often go back to the day they selected Alex as their new adopted daughter. They regretted listening to the agency. They should have paid attention to the telltale signs. However, the damage had already been done. After months of therapy sessions which yielded no improvement, Melanie and Rob figured that they'd had enough. They went through the lengthy procedure of having the adoption annulled and handed Alex over to another foster family. Now they are back to being a happy family. However, they are still traumatized by her ghoulish behavior, something which has forced them to seek counseling sessions to get over it.